adding the stripes in a silver, and I just wanted to show you, I mean, you can do this, right? You can measure your space, which is about 9.5 inches, and you can divide that out by the width of your tape, which is roughly 1 inch, and kind of do all the math. And I hate that. So I don't tend to do it that way. And I just wanted to show you kind of roughly the way that I sort of put these things together, and then show you kind of a couple of tricks about being able to get nice tight stripes. So I know that I want to have that plum color on the legs at the top. So I've taped off that edge. There's a little bit of a lip, but we'll do the silver there. Now, I've done the stripes on the other sides, so this is what I do. Is I start kind of with one that is roughly in the middle. So we've got that guy, and then I just take all my little pieces of tape and do them sideways. So lined up, kind of roughly side by side, so that the uneven width, because I'm not going to be cutting tape so that it works out to be perfect stripes along the way. So I want, if there's a narrow bend anywhere, I want it to be against the legs on either side. So I just kind of, roughly mark it out here and do my rough stripings all across. To see where we end up. So I'm seeing that I'm very skinny here, very narrow and very wide on this side, and all I'm going to do is kind of shift this one over a bit, which gives me roughly what this is going to end up with as well. So this becomes my standard. Now, I know I want this to be silver on this side, so this full length is going to be my plum color. So I'm going to start with my full stripe there. And all I'm going to want to do is kind of line it up with the table leg. So it's staying pretty darn even. So the width of that plum stripe here, which is going to end up being silver, stays the same. All right. So once I have one stripe down, I just use the width of my tape as a bit of a guide. So I line it up with the edge, because I know if this is silver, this is going to be the plum, this is silver, and this next stripe is what I'm going to keep in that plum color. So I just want my tape to be roughly the length, and I just line it up against the edge of those two pieces, and then they pop off. And I just take this and do exactly the same thing for the next stripe. So it makes it pretty fast, pretty easy to be able to lay down my stripes without having to go crazy with tons of math and doing tons of measuring, or, Lord, God forbid, I've heard of some people trying to cut the tape into specific widths. Just, you can buy tape in some different widths. Do that. So sometimes I will alternate. There's like a really fat tape, and if I get it. Now I will say this, the really, really thin tape, which is, you know, maybe like 1/4 of an inch wide, then I would draw a line that I want to line it up. It's really tough to keep that straight otherwise. But other than that, we're just going to continue and put our stripes on and then come back to start our painting. I've got all of my tape on, and you'll see I put a little bit of tape coming up over that lip, just so that when I paint the silver into my stripes, I can go up against this without having to worry about painting on the lip and having to touch up later. So a little bit of tape saves me a lot of anxiety later. Now, couple of quick tips about getting nice straight lines, nice crisp lines, I should say, is one, make sure that you really burnish in the edges of each of your stripes. You want to prevent any of your paint seeping in underneath the tape and creating kind of a bleed through area, a rough area, making the lines less crisp and giving you headaches later. So that's tip number one, is burnishing. The second tip is that you then, before you paint on the color of your stripes, you do one of two things. You either paint over that edge of the tape in your base coat color, and typically I will do that because if any paint is going to seep in under it, then you want it to be the same color that's already on there, so you're not going to see that seepage, right? So you're still going to have that crisp line. If you don't have, as in my case, I don't have any more of that color. We had hand mixed it and I used it all. So I don't have any of that left over, which is not a problem. All that you do is do exactly the same thing with a clear coat. So I'm taking Big Top by DIY and I am just going to paint all of my edges. Okay? So I am just going to go along, paint all of those edges so that if anything is bleeding under that tape, it's going to be my top coat, which is clear, so you're not going to see that. That also then helps you get those nice crisp edges and prevent some of that bleed through. So all I'm going to do is paint over the edge of the tape. I don't need to paint the whole stripe. I mean, you can if you want to, right? But all I want is along that edge so that if anything's bleeding under that edge, it's going to be my clear coat. This next step, once your sealer has dried, so whether you're using paint or sealer, once it's dried, is just to apply whatever the contrast color is. You could be using paint for it, certainly. I'm going to be using Rust-Oleum metallic accents in a silver. Do they call this silver or pewter? Well, silver color. And you're just simply going to paint over. Now, you might end up, for whatever color you're doing, depending upon the look that you're after or the streakiness of it, the kind of coverage you get, whether you're going to be doing one or two coats. When it comes to metals or metallics, I typically like to do 2 coats. So it's just as simple as painting it on. Okay, the next to last step in the process is to seal our piece. We are just going to be adding a clear wax. You can see that this really helps our colors pop. The silver isn't going to change, but that clay and base paint, that chalk paint that we use, that's really going to kind of deepen that color, make that contrast come out a little bit more. You can see how those stripes are much more prevalent this way. Got a puppy that wants to go out. So I am just going to be waxing this piece and leaving it overnight. So I wax it. I've got a cloth here to take out just a little bit of the excess, especially in some of those crevices. Make sure it doesn't harden in there. Tomorrow I will come in and buff it up, take a couple of pics to be able to show you the finished look. And there you have it. An easy way to do nice, crisp lines, little bit of taping tips for you to be able to do this. Really dress up any project, nice and simple and easy to be able to get that kind of look. Give it a try.